Hello everybody, Kamish here. It's time for week 3 fantasy predictions. Something that I forgot to mention in last week's prediction was the record that I had in the first week. And the first week I went 4-2 on my picks. Last week I actually went 5-1. Would have went perfect if Andrew Luck would have threw one less interception or maybe 50 more yards. He had a horrible game. Feel bad for Hoseheads, but that's the way fantasy works sometimes. So overall, 9-3, feeling pretty good. Going into week 3 about my selections. So we're going to try to keep it rolling. And looking at the first game, we're going to look at Team Markovic versus Danish House Mafia. The rosters here are pretty interesting, especially for Danish House Mafia, because some of the injured players that he traded for are finally potentially going to play. He traded for Evans and Foster, and they're both, well, at least Evans is looking like he's going to play. Foster, we don't know yet. And then he has a questionable Jonathan Stewart, where Team Markovic, my dad's team, surprisingly is 2-0, has a good team, and just got Le'Veon Bell back. He actually was not one of the people that had D'Angelo Williams. I have him in my other league, and I was telling some of the guys, I don't know how excited I am about having Le'Veon Bell back when I had D'Angelo Williams, who is actually through 2 weeks the number one running back. So how much room for improvement is there really to be had? But in my dad's case, who was not actually winning with D'Angelo Williams, now gets Le'Veon Bell, who should be the bell cow there, and his team is actually improved quite a bit. So with that said, ESPN thinks Team Markovic is going to win. Due to the question marks in terms of is Foster going to play, is Evans finally going to record some points? He played last week, but I'm not sure he even scored anything. We're going to go with the more consistent team here and pick Team Markovic for the win. The next matchup is the Hoseheads versus Score One for me. Looking at the matchups here, ESPN is favoring Score One for me by 5 points. I think that there's a good chance that I can win. But interesting point that I want to mention is going into the first week, I score the most points, feel good about my team, make a trade in which that I get a injured player that I'm not going to have for 6 to 12 weeks at the time, and I'm banking on my team doing well. Well, what happens is week 2, my starting running back, or my number 1 pick, Jamal Charles, had a good game, fumbled twice. Number 2 pick, Hill, fumbled twice, got benched, scored negative points for me. Keenan Allen, who had a great game week 1, got me negative points. Tony Romo, my quarterback, is out for extended period of time. Traded away my 4th pick, Andre Johnson. So it's amazing how your feeling of your team can change so dramatically week over week. It's kind of nuts, but I guess that's fantasy. But going back to the game itself, I think Andrew Luck's going to have a good game. I think Melvin Gordon could have a good game as well, too. Chris Johnson's supposedly supposed to be giving carries away to Williams. Cooper against Cleveland has Hayden on him. I still like Cooper, but it's going to be a little bit tougher. Don't expect the same production that he had last week. Floyd is so hit or miss going against Sam Fran, and Olsen was finally involved. So looking at my team, assuming that Hill gets back on track, and Carson Palmer keeps playing like Carson Palmer does, I'm going to have to give the nod to myself. So Score One for me beats Hoseheads to go to 2-1. Next matchup that we're going to look at is South Campbell versus War Nation. South Campbell is 0-2. War Nation is 1-1. Looking at the matchups here, again, Team Denver has a good matchup against Detroit. Detroit plays better at home. They were 7-1 last year at home. The only loss was that stupid Buffalo game where we did not have a kicker and we couldn't make any field goals, if anybody remembers that. So I think Detroit's going to play better. I think Detroit actually has a chance to win this game. Would I bet money on it? No, but don't be surprised if Detroit does win. With that being said, I still think Manning and Emmanuel Sanders, who's not in the starting lineup, not really sure why, but I do think he should probably be in there, but who am I? You're the manager. We have South Campbell with Team Denver Projected to win by ESPN going against War Nation. Matt Ryan, Latavius Murray, Crowell against Oakland. That's a good matchup. Julio Jones, questionable. Andre Johnson, probable. Martellus Bennett against Seattle, which is going to be a good matchup for him. I am going to go with South Campbell. I was going to say assuming he puts in Emmanuel Sanders, but I'm not managing the team. So with that said, Jeff's probably going to be pissed that I even said that. But anyways, sorry, Jeff. I'm going to go with South Campbell here to beat War Nation. The next game, Everyday I'm Wrestling versus Metal Militia. It's an important game for both teams as they're both 0-2. Somebody's finally going to get a win. Who is that going to be? ESPN thinks Metal Militia is going to do it. Roethlisberger against St. Louis. Adrian Peterson against San Diego. Good matchup. Giovanni and Green against Baltimore. Potentially a good matchup. Hilton against Tennessee. Could be good. I feel Indy's really going to come on fire this week. I don't know how they're going to do it defensively or offensively, assuming offensively, but assuming that Hilton's okay, he should have a good game. Stafford, Lynch is questionable. If he plays, though, running over Chicago is very likely. Golden Tate could be a sneaky pick against Denver, being that Talib is probably going to be on Johnson. Tate could actually have a good game. Don't really like Joyke Bell. Travis Benjamin is the actual number one receiver in fantasy off like 4 or 5 big plays. I don't know how consistent I feel like that's going to happen. However, he is playing Oakland, and there is no Johnny Manziel. But that could be a make-or-break thing as well. Forsett in the flex. More consistent team, at least name power. I'm going to say this one's going to be close. I would not be surprised if Everyday I'm Wrestling did win based on big performances from Stafford and Tate. If that does happen, they will win. But I'm going to go with the more consistent team, I believe, which is Metal Militia. The next matchup is Dogs of War versus the Abusement Park. This one's going to be for a tie, at least, if Proctor wins, for the division lead. Dogs of War is 2-0. Abusement Park is 1-1. Line is 1.6 for Dogs of War. It's a toss-up. Drew Brees, questionable. Forte, questionable. Cook's questionable. 3 of the top 4 or 5 guys drafted are all questionable. Abusement Park has Brady, McCoy, Starks, or Lacey. Good pickup on Starks. It's a tough thing to do if you don't have Starks to play that Monday night game, not knowing if Lacey's going to play or not. So he's going to have one of the two there. Rams D against Pittsburgh. Don't know if I really love that. Well, Proctor has Emmanuel Sanders. I had it backwards. So sorry, Alex. I guess you don't have Emmanuel Sanders. Wrong team. You guys played each other last week, and I probably got it confused. Interesting stat about Carolina. I read 4 or 5 days ago, or heard on a podcast. They have not allowed the top receiver from the given team to score or to have more than 70 yards in 10 straight contests, and this includes Julio Jones last year, Jimmy Graham when he was on the Saints. So I'm expecting that Brandon Cooks is not going to have a good game based on those stats and based on being questionable. And also Drew Brees. He's having problems, blaming his shoulder. Who knows if that's true or not, but I think the fire has finally died in Drew Brees, and he's on the decline. He could very well prove me wrong, but I don't see it at Carolina. I'm going to give this matchup to the Abusement Park. Okay, the next game, which is the game of the week. It's the game of the week because we have one of the preseason, when we were sitting around the draft board looking at the teams, one of the teams that most people thought was good and Dustin really thought was good. I don't know if he was drunk being funny or silly, but he was saying that he drafted the best team, and so far he has been right. And one of the worst teams that a lot of people thought was Van Roto, coming out with his 0 RB strategy, but now he's laughing in everyone's faces. He's 2-0 as well. Both teams are 2-0. This is probably going to decide who's the best team in the league. An important matchup. It's a division matchup. Both teams are good. Let's go to the match. And the game of the week is the closest game according to ESPN. It is decided by a 0.3 spread. 0.3, less than a point, for Van Roto. Looking at the matchups, Cam Newton against New Orleans. Pretty good matchup there. Alfred Morris against the Giants. Depends on what happens with Matt Jones. I still think it's kind of too early to rely on Jones. I think Alfred Morris is the right play. Could be wrong later on in the year. Matt Jones is probably going to be the right play. Gurley coming back, starting, never played before in the NFL, so we'll see what that happens. Could be a huge game, could be a dud. Antonio Brown is always good. Harvin, Graham, Macklin, Patriots D against Jacksonville. That's a nice matchup. Looking at Van Roto, we have Tannehill, Ivory against Philly, Tannehill against Buffalo. Don't love it against Buffalo. Frank Gore against Tennessee, Calvin Johnson against Denver. One would think there would have to be a lot of points scored, but you never know with Talib. James Jones on Monday night. Oh, yeah, Monday night combo there. Gronkowski probably will score because he does every week. Cardinals even. Oh, this one is tough. Tough. Where are there more question marks? I guess there's more question marks for Monday Night Miracle. Alfred Morris, who knows how Matt Jones is going to get used. Gurley, don't know. Harvin was kind of a stud week 1, flame week 2. Same deal with Jimmy Graham. Macklin against GB is a nice matchup as well. I don't know. Tough to call. I'm going to go with Van Roto winning. I think Gronk's going to have a big game just because he always does. I think Calvin actually might end up having a good game as well. And I don't really love the Tannehill pick, but if Ivory plays against Philly, that's going to be another good matchup as well. So I'm going to go Van Roto beating Monday Night Miracle in the game of the week. So there you have it. Those are my picks. Everybody, I hope that you enjoy week 3 of fantasy football. Still early in the season. You have time to tool around with your roster, pick up agents, make trades, whatever you feel like. Nobody's officially out or anywhere close to that. I know I made some bold predictions last week about not making the playoffs and so on, but that's more for fun, even though it could happen, but we'll see. So with that, good luck to everybody. May your players be safe and your team do well. See ya.